Coach, so what I want you to be doing, Corin, right now is I want you to be thinking, so first of all, two things are happening. One, you're kind of being introduced to yet another career working with children, right? So again, if teaching in the classroom feels like something that isn't for you, just the fact that the district has an instructional coach, that's kind of cool. On Wednesday, I'm gonna have Mrs. Morwick, who is the district's social emotional learning coordinator. So the whole district has actually hired a social emotional learning coordinator. So you're getting all these really great opportunities to realize in the teaching world, it's not necessarily just teaching in the classroom or just being a principal. But what does social emotional learning have to do with positive guidance and classroom management? What's the correlation there?
Self-regulation.
Self-regulation, exactly. Think back to the notes that we've been talking about. What is the long-term goal of positive guidance? What's the long-term goal of it?
For students to guide themselves.
For them to be driving their own car, for them to be regulating their own emotions, for them ultimately we want them to be able to make decisions for themselves without the teacher always right there, right? So the social emotional learning, goals of social emotional learning kind of dovetail the goals of positive guidance and classroom management in the way that I've been talking to you about it, in the way that I've been presenting it to you, right? That it might feel like you're having to do a lot of work in the beginning with classroom management when you are using positive language, when you're setting clear expectations, and giving the child the opportunity to make decisions for themselves and for their, but when you're doing all that, you're setting them up to be self-regulated, which also meets our goals of what we want for kids in our class in terms of social emotional learning. So it kind of all goes together. So I just wanted to remind you that that's what we were talking about. I know it's been 4 days since we've had our notes out. But what I want you to do today is try to remember, we've been talking about positive guidance. I started to give you a series of specific techniques that I said you could put in your toolbox in order to use when you're in the classroom. Do you remember what some of those techniques were that we covered? Okay, that's the last thing that we talked about. What's the 3 R's have to do with?
Relevant.
Yeah. So the 3 R's are the guideline I was giving you when you have to impose a consequence, because your students are gonna sometimes have discretions and you do have to impose a consequence. We talked about how the consequence should be related, it should be reasonable, it should be respectful, and then we also said it should be helpful. And we want all of those things because we want the child to think for themselves. All right, so what you've got in front of you is a card. And first I'm going to give you a vignette. In other words, this is a little article about Mrs. Sanders. And Mrs. Sanders starts her elementary school day with a morning meeting. How many of your teachers do that? I know for a fact 2 of you. So tell me a little bit about what that looks like. First thing.
Well, usually in the morning, by the time I get there, they're just coming in and eating their breakfast. And during that time, they're supposed to sit at their desk and eat their breakfast. And then once EJ's prepared, or got her morning routine finished, she calls for a morning meeting. And they sit in the middle of the room on a rug, talk about the expectations for the day, what they're doing today, and then ask questions at the end.
So there's a lot of things that are going on there that are parallel to the article. So so some things I'm going to ask you when we come back again is, why have them sit on the rug? Why have them sit on a circle? Why not just leave them in their desks? Why not have the meeting when they're talking? She's probably very intentional about all those decisions. So it'd be interesting to see what her reasons are for that. Tell us about your morning meeting.
It's very similar to Michelle's, in the beginning. And then they have a timer, so then once that timer goes off, they all meet in the middle.
I like that.
Yep. And then I lead the morning meeting. So I sit in the rocking chair, and if it's Tuesday, it's a would you rather question. And then Thursday, it's Thankful Thursday. So they all say something that they're thankful for. And then we have a little squishy ball that they pass around so the other kids don't. So they learn to take turns and respect others.
Yeah, I like that, and especially even that little thing about the timer, right? So the timer going off is it's a prompt. but it's not the teacher saying, come do this thing right now, right? It's there, and they decide on their own, that's a prompt, and they get to be like, oh, it's morning meeting time, so they're already regulating themselves. Okay, so and then for Mrs. Muzzy's class, they probably don't do a meeting because it's different kids, you know, they pull the kids out of the classrooms, and so these are gonna be, this is the kind of thing I want you to think about when you have your own classroom. The other thing I want you to be thinking about is, what are the goals for the teacher when she has that morning meeting? What is she thinking? What is he or she thinking when she pulls the kids all together? Is it to kill some time? Is it because we don't have math until 8:30 and gosh, we need to like kill the time before 8:30, you know? So as I've mentioned several times, like teaching is very, very intentional, even though the teacher isn't necessarily saying what it is that they're trying to get out of that time. So I've got a vignette, since not all of you have a morning meeting to observe. This is Mrs. Sanders, and she has an inclusion classroom, which you guys know what that means. It means that kids who have IEPs or some special needs are also in that classroom, and they all meet at the same time with her class, and she does a morning meeting and she's describing it. So for those of you that haven't been able to observe a morning meeting, you're going to read this article about what this morning meeting looks like. And then once you've read your article, you are going to find your partner, which was based on the cards that you got. So I'm pretty sure that J and J, so it looks like you guys automatically are partners. Okay, so your partner is going to be the person with the same letter as you, and then you and your partner are going to go around the room and you're going to answer the prompts that are assigned to the whiteboard. You can take that paper with you when you go with your partner to reflect on it. So a few things before you go out and look at the prompts that I wanted to just kind of reiterate and revisit is that what I love about this article is that it's from the point of view from the teacher, and I know as a teacher, someone could come into my classroom and they might think, oh, they're just sitting around talking, or they're just making a paper flower, you know, and I've had those comments before where it looks like they're just doing fun things. But what I love about this article is it kind of shows you how, yeah, on the outside, it might look like the kids are all just sitting in a circle and sharing some toy that the child brought in. But hopefully, at this point in your career, you can identify so clearly why that teacher is doing that, you know, and that's what some of my prompt questions are going to be, is why is she doing that? And how is teaching in the classroom, what it looks like and what an effective classroom and where kids are really learning doesn't really look like they're all just sitting in desks with, you know, papers in front of them like you are right now. In fact, I think when we shift gears here, this is going to be much more of a learning activity when you're out of your desks and moving around. So find your partner and go around to the prompts, and I do want you to write them on the boards.
There's a dry erase marker near each one too, so just one per
Have a
station.
partner. You can go to anyone at any point, it doesn't have to be in order. Yeah, just two person at one at a time.
Over there.
If I didn't make that clear, part of the point of going around to the prompts is that you want to look at what the group before you wrote, and you're not going to write the same thing that they wrote, so you're going to have to come up with different stuff. So the first one is easy peasy, because whatever you write is going to be the first thing, but you don't want to start repeating what everybody else wrote.
I think.
Can't she do that at the door though?
Yeah, but no, she says that even if they go.
Okay, what are we saying?
She says, I make sure I agree with each student, even if he / she is going out with them.
Okay.
So she uses that.
Okay.
Stuff that
I
there's.
said that and you said no.
I thought you meant like, no, it's big one, but I like.
Yay, that was fun.
Just think of it this way, they'll build off
Time to get
of,
off the table now.
you put that and
I
then
figured
that's, so they'll build off.
All you.
Wow, look at you go.
Next.
You started with one of the more challenging ones, I agree.
So we're
Okay,
rotating
so
this
let
way.
me rephrase
It
that
doesn't
question
matter.
then.
There's
In what
just
ways does
we
it
gotta
want to be
get to
general
the
and until I phrase that? in Mrs. Sanders' room, help her students to perform better academically. Okay, so what I'm asking you to think about is how related is this sense of community to their ability to know?
You can go there, they're almost fine. Remember, you're trying to find something different. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can skip over to this one. Yeah, where's the support and mistakes with it? Because I like that, it's a good idea.
Okay, well, look, is this
Free to take risks. And they all are created by me.
So this one's hard, it's supposed to be, it's a little more challenging, right? It's the whole point of it, why do we incorporate social emotional learning in the classroom?
By name.
Why, how
What?
does
Name.
Okay, how
Oh,
does
here, it says they can treat each other like friends and they can
So you two go around and take a look at like
Okay.
the ones you started at and see what you
They
think
can ask
about
each
that.
other
That would be really, I know you're kind of doing that
They
already.
feel like willing to ask each other
There you
for
go.
help
I think
like
that's
that.
a good.
The blank stare.
Yeah.
We'll
it
figure it
allows them
out.
to, like, show off like they care. What they
So you have hit every single
Yep.
prompt, there should be 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a question.
What's your question?
So for this one, what do I say, like when the student talks about grief, like if you wake up, the loss of the big you.
I just want you to, I want you to dig a little deeper, right? Like, so how, like, and then how would the teacher translate that? So in the morning meeting, he shared a toy, everybody accepted it. Would that set the stage then later for her to ask a math question? That child would feel more comfortable answering. So, maybe that connection, right? Yeah, say that. The point of it was to get you thinking so that when we came back to a class discussion and I asked some of these questions, you don't just stare at me blankly, right? Because this is about, you do have a voice. So all I'm trying to get you to do is to say why. Like, so if your principal came in and said, this is a waste of 25 minutes, we've got to get those math standards, these kids are not up to reading level, and you're spending 20 minutes every morning doing a morning meeting, why are you doing that? And you would say,
You want me to say?
Yeah.
Okay. It allows students to remind themselves of what their standards and expectations are in the morning. That's what EJ does. It also gives them an opportunity to share about their personal lives, stuff that doesn't happen just specifically in the classroom.
It doesn't,
like their
does it?
share-
Yeah,
Their interests.
I mean, we do, but
That is a
sometimes we
basic
overshare.
answer.
but-
Be basic.
Okay, that's what I want you guys to, so, and thank you, and so that's when we go around and we answer these prompts, that's my point, is I just wanted you to start thinking, why am I doing this? How does this help them be better learners? Because it's always about helping them be better learners in the classroom. We want kids to share, we want them to have a good morning, we want them to feel comfortable, but ultimately, why do we want all that? Because we want to help them academically. So that, you started with that one, and you said, you answered, it sets the stage. Okay, so tell me what you mean by that, because I totally
Like
agree.
it just sets them like it starts off the day, like you just get in the mindset. You know,
Mhm.
like I don't
You're
know.
shifting gears. I think the message says, this is what I expect of you. I
Right.
expect you to
This
be
is what we're doing
aware
at this
of what you're
time.
doing. You are a
Yeah.
student now in a classroom,
Mhm.
and you might want to be playing with your friends, or you might want to talk about what you did over the weekend, but we actually are here for these things.
Yeah.
But she's saying it without saying it,
Right.
right? Okay, so is that what you meant by set the stage?
Yeah.
So free to take risks, what did you mean by that? How does being free to take risks help a student perform academically in the classroom? And I totally agree with you, so yes,
feel
your
like
answer is
it-
good.
Lets them feel open with like their peers and stuff and willing to say or try things without being judged even if they get whatever it is wrong.
Uh-huh.
I think it just makes them feel more respected with others.
I totally agree. And what does he know about the teacher?
He knows that she'll set up an environment where he feels safe and like willing.
she's not gonna let them make fun of his
Yeah.
wrong answer because she's already demonstrated that in the micro classroom morning meeting, right? So I think that if she does that, she or he effectively does that. What about, it gives them ability to ask each other for help. That was you, Jacob, right?
Yeah.
How does the morning meeting give them the sense that they can ask each other for help, and how does
Because
that?
like the morning meeting, it builds like a sense of community almost. So then whenever you like go into like the classroom, you'll be like, I know who you are, can I like ask you for help?
I think that's excellent, and don't I tell you guys all the time that you are learning from each other, right? An effective teacher is not just imparting information at you like bowling balls, like you're just setting the stage for you guys to learn from each other. One child might be able to explain it better, you know, or something like that. That's excellent. Let's do this one. List the benefit of the morning meeting. So we started with the hard one, right? That was the real piece de resistance, which is like, what was the reason that she's doing it to help her students? What about students get to learn about their peers?
That was me.
Okay.
I said that because I think during the morning meeting, having the other students like learn about others also creates like a sense of community, but it builds a relationship. So if you start that from like the very beginning, by the end they're gonna be like super close, and that leads into like academic, like and outside of the classroom.
All of it, right? You start, it all kind of starts to dovetail at this point. Current events, that was an interesting one. We'll put that one. Yeah, Maya.
Because how she goes over like what they're doing in the day and what your classmates are doing like yesterday, or like what is going on in the world around you. It gives you a sense of like acknowledgement on something that isn't just your life, on other people's life and what is going on currently.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that some teachers are starting to feel a little hesitant about talking about things that aren't related necessarily directly to their curriculum. But I always feel like if you start the morning out, and if you say one of you brings up something that happened in Gaza, or one of you wants to talk about, you know, the Palestine-Israel, you might not, but you know, there are some teachers that might feel like, oh, well, now we're getting into politics and my class is about, you know, education. But you can stage it in a way where you're sharing your concerns, right? Or you might have questions, and I think that continues to be a learning environment, and it lets the teacher know this is something you're concerned about, and it lets the other kids, and it might even, the other kids might be like, yeah, my parents were talking about that too, or I saw that on the news. Exactly, because it should be a learning environment about all the things that you bring into it. I agree. I love having current events and bringing up what's relevant or important. And then allow students to celebrate their differences.
Yeah, sure, that one too.
Okay. Well, how is that a benefit?
Another like example from EJ's classroom right around the holidays in December, she talked about Yule and Hanukkah and a whole bunch of other like celebrations right around that time, and she celebrated with her students, each and every one.
Of each kid that had that, oh, that's great.
Yeah, it
Right.
was really, really cool. But in that one morning meeting, she talked about these different holidays, educated these kids about these different holidays if they didn't know what they were. And I think it's really good that, you know, those kids have the opportunity to learn about that.
And at that point in the year, they've been doing morning meetings so long that they knew that they didn't have the option to say, I don't care, or that doesn't relate to me, so why are we talking about it? They were already in mode of, oh, we're learning about each other.
Right.
Awesome, I love it.